All right. We're still in Data Sources 1. We're still in the Sources section, but this is the last of the sources, source types that I'll talk about in section 3.4, commercial or subscription data sources. These are things that you won't be able to get in for free. To get full access, you will need to authenticate through Rutgers if you are a Rutgers person, or if you're just watching this video, your local library, academic or public or otherwise, might have access to these. You should check with them. And I'm providing links here to the Rutgers launch page for these sources so that it will launch me into the authenticated version. And so also at other institutions, you may have some other sources beyond or different than what Rutgers has. Once again, I'm only hitting the highlights from a local context from where I sit, and so your mileage may vary. The idea here, right, is that we talked about how government can compel information and nonprofits can pursue certain interests, but often when there's an interest in data on a topic, companies come in to fill that gap and develop sources using their own research, their own resources to compile things, and charge for access, bring that back to us, and they can still be quite useful data sources. So I'm going to start with what is now called SAGE data. SAGE has been accumulating social science data research material of various types. They have a few different modules actually that I won't discuss here, but the SAGE data module is their data offering. The advantage of SAGE data is, and again, I'm going to try to avoid doing a walkthrough of like how to use each of these things to keep it short. The advantage of SAGE data is that they have pulled from really a bunch of diverse sources, but put them in a common format, right? So that we can, once we get used to the common format, we can quickly extract this information. So if I wanted to compare across disciplines, we saw mortality statistics earlier, we saw economic statistics earlier, but I could mix and match those things in SAGE data and compare, let's say, mortality versus income, maybe a little bit more easily than I could by pulling the separate sources. You can see that, let me try mortality, leading causes of death in the United States. Let's just pick this one. Or let's pick cancer statistics, since we kicked off the discussion some time ago with cancer. So here's cancer mortality. Here is a table, and they provide you with very good information about where exactly did they get this data. They're not, compared to just a Google search on this. Not that you should be using Google, you should be using DuckDuckGo or some other search engine. Compared to an internet search on this topic, you're getting something that is telling you the source, telling you where to go for more information, explaining what it's being reported, and providing a citation for you to use in your papers, your write-ups, your presentations. And we can have these little filters, right, where we can say, okay, I could learn the original source's way of formatting this, but everything in SAGE data gets formatted the same way so that I can select the years I'm interested in. Let's just, I don't know, remove some. And I can select whatever level of detail that is there. Sometimes there's state level detail. Here's region. You can see it's breaking out for me the different kinds of cancer that are reported, right? So if I say I'd rather learn about the cancer of the esophagus or the larynx, let's say, I can quickly add those in. I can export the data. I can export the chart, and it's a quick, easy to use way. Also a way that I can discover who's producing that kind of data. If I want more detail, I now know which data source to go back to and try to get more data. But it's a great source from this perspective. All right. So that's SAGE. There are a couple of sources that have a really nice map interface for data exploration. One of those is Social Explorer. And Social Explorer is an alternative gateway into census information, plus some other things. You can see on our start page, we have United States, but we also have US crime data, US health data, such as obesity, election data, and we could click into any of these aspects. Also a few international things as well, which I won't go into in this session. But let's just start the basic United States interface, and it has a mapping interface, right? So we start out with population density. We can change the data to anything we're interested in, and this has as much census data as they can squeeze in, going all the way back to 1790, right? So let me say, I'm just going to sort of randomly pick here, 1960 income, like maybe not income, let's do 1960 marital status, right? This may not be that interesting of a index, but just the percentage of people married in 1960, and you can see it fills in the data that this data is only available in certain census tracts. Census tracts are one level of geographical detail in the census. So I've got a map that does not provide anything sort of out at the state level. But as I zoom in, and let's do New York City, I can see detail there that's actually at this very fine-grained level, right? So I can see the darkly shaded zones have higher percentage of married population. The light-colored ones have fewer. And this, I won't pick on any specific meaning for this, but this might give us some other ways of exploring, what has been going on across all of these data dimensions that are available for really as many years as you can possibly get for the US, right? And if I go forward in time to more recent years, you can see there are even more categories: native and foreign-born, ancestry, race and ethnicity, all kinds of things that I can study via this map. And once I've identified something on the map, I can also pull tables. I can download the numeric data behind it. But let's see what I've got. This is religiosity, which appears to be by selected counties. I don't know, not so many counties. I'm just randomly picking some data, so I've picked some things that are less complete, but you get the idea. here is quite powerful, quite comprehensive, and so census data in particular, you have some choices about how you'd like to access it, and they've given you something a bit different than the standard census presentation. I won't spend a lot of time on Policy Map, but it is important because it's very similar to Social Explorer, except it has a number of other sort of very local categories of information. There's more information on housing and health and quality of life. So like you can look for things like homelessness, crime, food deserts, things like that, farmers market locations. This all comes in on a mapping interface. So here's farmers markets mapped across the US, and like the other mapping tools, once you zoom in, you can get more detailed presentation. We also have those graphs where the areas are shaded by percentage of activity. I'm trying to save time here, so I won't go further. But Policy Map, think about it. It's another good source for social demographic data that's not in Social Explorer. One source that you might already have encountered on the internet is Statista. Of all the things I'm talking about as subscription sources, you might have seen this, because Statista has really good search engine optimization. When you search for something, you often find a Statista result will pop up. However, the subscription version is more complete. The subscription version doesn't have anything sort of shaded out. Well, like when you click on a result, you get more. So I'm going back to my other topic that I've been searching on is immigration. You can see U.S. immigration, migration statistics and facts. That's a kind of overview category where they're collecting different series that they have on related to immigration. What Statista's approach is to really have a kind of a quick time series, quick graph on a particular topic. So when we look at the immigration statistics, you can see, okay, here's naturalization by year, refugee admissions by year or by country. Here's the number of people with green cards from 1820 to 2023. And once you click on any one of those series, you'll get a little graph. In the subscribed version, you can download the data and you get all the source details. So just like Sage Data, we've got information that lets us cite the data in different styles. We have the original sources and a full description, right? So we know what we're looking at, right? This is very important in a data source. Always know how to cite it, how to get back to the original, even if you're using I would call it a shortcut or a compilation source like Statista. And you can see the immigration restriction after World War I really drove down those numbers for quite a while, and then creeping up after World War II, and then expanding quite a bit after 1980 or so to a higher baseline level. Statista is fun, it's quick, it's useful for those sources. What it does not let you do is, like, what you see is what you get. You can't do much to modify the coverage that you get on the screen. You can't say, I'd like to change that into a different time series or do something else. Probably better just to grab the data and run with it into some other place. So a source that I also would like to mention is the Statistical Abstract of the United States. Now, so most countries around the world have a kind of official government fact book that is put out. In the United States, this used to be the Statistical Abstract of the United States. It used to be put out by the government and was like this big summary of all the government statistics. And you can see it's divided into sections. Since we've been talking about death, let's look at deaths here. And you can see there are tables that extract from those sources that we've already looked at specific things: births, deaths, deaths and death rates by state, by age, sex, and Hispanic origin, right? So this is all stuff that's available elsewhere. However, if you are like browsing, thinking for ideas of like, I just need to get started, give me some basic information, the Statistical Abstract is a really good thing for that kind of use. Get familiar with what's going on. Now, about over 10 years ago, the government ceased its publication of the Statistical Abstract, and it was taken over by ProQuest, the company, which is part of Clarivate's larger empire, and they continue to produce it. It's sort of not the authoritative official government version of statistics anymore, but it is basically doing the same thing. So that exists, and there's a companion that was produced some time back when it was still a government source, called the Historical Statistics of the U.S., Millennial Edition. Now this only goes up through the year 2000, but it has everything until 2000. So if you want a historical overview, this is a really good one-stop shop for that. So if I want to see population, immigration up to the year 2000, this is an authoritative source for that kind of thing, right? So we have, let's do this, immigrants by country. Country of last residence, right? And so we can see from 1820, when it was first collected, and it's going to go up through the year 2000, the full time series of this stuff. And we can, again, as usual, in the data source, what we always look for, we can download the data. So if you think about Statistical Abstract, think about historical statistics as well, if you're interested in that long-term pre-2000 picture. Then the final non-commercial, commercial data source that I'm going to talk about is something that I sometimes refer to as hidden data from a library's perspective. Again, your mileage may vary at your location, but for financial research data for finance and business, the Wharton Research Data Services is let me call it the leading platform. This platform lets researchers extract large data sets for analysis, right? So we talked about the annual report filings of companies back at the beginning. The data service called CompuStat collects that information into a searchable and extractable format for all companies for as many years as the data is available. And CompuStat is available via this WRDS interface. So the idea here, like if I say I want all the companies in the manufacturing sector, I want to study their revenues versus their research and development expense, I can go into WRDS, use their very precise interface, and pull exactly the variables I need for all the companies I need, for all the years I need, in just a minute or two, and pull out one big data set and then start my analysis. Company data, stock prices, acquisitions, corporate compensation. There are many data sets that are in WRDS. I called it hidden. Why is it hidden? One thing, it's only available to faculty and doctoral students, and limited exceptions for course use where the faculty member initiates that. So it's not something that fits the library's model of making it available to anyone at the institution. And it is not managed by the libraries. It's an expensive specialized source that is managed by Rutgers Business School. So you won't see it on the list of library databases because it is not a library database. As I said, it has those access restrictions. However, it's definitely something to know about. This is one of these areas of specialized data where, depending on your needs, there may be a specialized commercial data source that really provides the best access to the type of data you need. But you have to figure out if it's available to you. If you go here to create an account, I think regardless of what institution you are at, you will be asked, like, who are you affiliated with? Do you have an affiliation that would actually get you into this database? And the registration form will route you to the appropriate person, and you'll be either approved or denied for access. Hosted out of Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, but it's kind of its own product, WRDS. Within WRDS, there are many data sources that are hosted through this interface, right? So I just clicked on data, and you can see there's all these things that institutions then choose to subscribe to some of these sources, probably not all of them. All right. So there are probably other hidden sources that could be talked about, but that gives you an idea of the range, some of the major commercial sources, and the range of things that they can encompass. So I'll stop here for the sources section, and we're going to proceed in the next section to talk about restricted data.